The tax collectors and sinners were drawing near to listen to Jesus. The Pharisees and scribes began to complain, saying, "The man welcomes sinners and eats with them." So then Jesus addressed this parable. A man had 2 sons, and the younger said to his father, "Father, give me the share of your estate that should come to me." So the father divided the property between them. After a few days, the younger son collected all of his belongings and set off to a distant country, where he squandered his inheritance on a life of dissipation. When he had freely spent everything, a severe famine struck that country, and he found himself in dire need. So he hired himself out to one of the local citizens, who sent him to his farm to tend the swine. And he longed to eat his fill of the pods on which the swine fed, but nobody gave him any. Coming to his senses, he thought, "How many of my father's hired workers have more than enough food to eat? But here I am, dying from hunger. I shall get up and go to my father, and I shall say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son. Treat me as you would treat one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father. And while he was still a long way off, his father caught sight of him and was filled with compassion. He ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. He said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son.' But his father ordered his servants, 'Quickly bring the finest robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Take the fatted calf and slaughter it. Then let us celebrate with a feast, because this son of mine was dead and has come to life again. He was lost, but he was lost, but he has been found.' Then the celebration began. Now the older son had been out in the field, and on his way back, as he neared the house, he heard the sound of music and dancing. He called one of the servants and asked what this might mean. The servant said to him, 'Your brother has returned, and your father has slaughtered the fattened calf, because he has come back safe and sound.' He became angry. And when he refused to enter the house, his father came out and pleaded with him. He said to his father in reply, 'Look, all these years I served you, and not once did I disobey your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat to feast on with my friends. But when your son returns, who swallowed up your property with prostitutes, for him you slaughtered the fatted calf.' The father said to him, 'My son, you are here with me always, and everything I have is yours. But now we must celebrate and rejoice, because your brother was dead and has come to life again. He was lost, but has been found.'" The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me be here. My name is Bill I've been asked to talk briefly because we have a reconciliation service. That means everyone has to say out loud your worst sin. How's your Lent? How's Lent going? Good? You've been very sacrificial and self-denying and all that stuff? In the last message, I said that the hardest Lent I ever had was when I was a teacher. I gave up television for Lent. And this was a long time ago when the Lakers were winning. I couldn't watch any playoffs. They won the championship. You know how hard that was? That was like, so I was like so thankful for Easter. This Lent, I gave up speeding.
That was hard for me.
Yeah, speeding. Meaning like going over the speed limits. I know none of you do it. None of you started, I know that. You're all safe drivers. It's a lot harder than I thought. And it's really convicting to realize how often I do it. And the excuses I make now for being late. The gospel today is probably one of my favorites. It's one of those that everybody knows. It's even one that's sort of made it out into, obviously, mainstream culture. Because you can say to people who don't even go to church, the prodigal son, and they know what you're talking about. The prodigal son, right? My favorite, and I've said this before, so you probably have heard this, but my favorite version of it is done by Franco Zeffirelli in Jesus of Nazareth. Some of you know that series, Jesus of Nazareth. It was done many, many years ago, but it was commissioned by the Pope, believe it or not. Franco Zeffirelli was one of the greatest Italian directors ever, and he was friends with Pope Paul before he became Pope Paul VI. He was the Bishop of Milan, and in Milan it's an art center, fashion center, film, all of that, and that's where Zeffirelli is from. And they were pals. And so when he became Pope, Pope Paul goes, "You're going to do this." He commissioned it. You're going to do this. And nobody else is going to do it. Only you or nobody. So how do you say no to that, right? And if you watch the whole series, which is a long series, you see all these amazing actors pop up. And these are older actors now because it's been so long, but Anne Bancroft, you know her, she played Mary Magdalene. Sir Laurence Olivier played Nicodemus. I mean, we're talking like heavy hitters in the acting world. They were all clamoring to work with Zeffirelli. Zeffirelli tells the prodigal son story in such a beautiful way that it's really amazing. So Jesus, as you know, is in the whole series, he's this really pretty powerful figure, right? The actor does a great job. His last name is Powell. He's a really good actor. And Zeffirelli pits Peter against Matthew as he tells this story. So we remember the calling of Matthew, right? Matthew was a right? So the really great sermon that Bishop Peter gave a while back was really about the call of Matthew. The call of Matthew was really powerful because Matthew was a tax collector and he was hated by everyone. Hated, like, is a mild word. He was hated by his own people, and he was like sort of tolerated by the Romans. He skimmed off the top. He was kind of a shyster. He wasn't a good person. And Jesus engages him, and Matthew says, "Come have dinner at my house." So Jesus accepts the offer, right? And what does Peter do? He's a little upset. How are you going to go hang out with that guy? He's a tax collector. What are you doing? And you see in this interaction, Peter's upset. Like, where are you going? Why are you doing that? And Jesus kind of just smiles and goes on his way. And Peter's upset, right? So at the dinner, Zeffirelli's whole setup is really, awesome. They're all sitting on at the low table, and he pans the camera around, and you see all this version of all this sort of those who are discarded by society. So those who are sex workers, and those who are tax collectors, and those who are really the ruffians of the crowd. And they're all like having this raucous time. And there's Jesus just sitting there. Look at them all. And one of the women goes, "Tell us the story, Jesus." And Matthew's like, "Yes, Jesus, tells the story. And Jesus goes, he looks at all of them, and then he looks at the doorway. Seth really does a great job. He looks at the doorway, and there's Peter standing there like this, looking in. And Jesus catches his eye, and he goes, I'll tell you a story. And he begins. And he tells the story of the prodigal son, right? He took all of cash. So, any of you have ever heard of birth order stuff? This is in psychology, birth order, right? So, where you were born in your family impacts you. This is the theory behind it. Turns out it pans out pretty good. 2,000 years ago, Jesus knew about birth order. You know the story. The oldest in the family carries the banner for the family. That means the good name. He has to be the achiever. She has to be the achiever. She has to carry the whole family honor. That's the whole oldest responsibility. If they're not able to kind of fulfill that responsibility, or if they've gone in a different direction, or they do something different, number two takes over, or number two goes in a different direction as well. But there's this little bit of an interesting relationship between the oldest and the next. And then you have the middle child. Sorry. Those of you who are middle child know how difficult it is to be a middle child. And then you have the youngest, so it goes by fours. And then you have the youngest, who's usually the comedian or the clown, or like makes light of everything to ease the tension. Does it sound familiar? And then if the family's super big, the whole pattern repeats. So the fifth child becomes the oldest. The only child, if you're an only child, you have it rough because you got to do all four. Jesus knew birth order. So the oldest, right, the second, he's like, what's going to come of the second brother? And the two brother stories are familiar, right? We see Esau and Jacob. Esau sells his birthright for a bowl of beans because he's not really all that bright. Younger wins. We see in Joseph's story, the youngest, right, he and Benjamin kind of take the whole crowd for a ride because they're like, all the older brothers are coming to Joseph. That doesn't happen in the story. Jesus does the two brother story, but he flips the script. The youngest one doesn't end up on top. The youngest one looks and says, what's my life going to be like? So he has his older brother is super responsible, manages the whole farm, does exactly what his dad says. Everything is great, right? And they're doing really well. His older brother's in charge. What's the fate of the second brother? I got to work for him. So right? You know what I'm talking about, right? So he's like, no, I don't think so. Give me my money. I want the cash. Give me my cash. So the dad says, okay. It's an interesting part. You understand that the purpose of parables, Jesus is really, the whole reason he talks in parables, is to speak of the true nature of God. He's trying to tell people, like you and I, really basic folk who just are trying to understand. He's trying to tell you, this is what God is like. He's explaining the nature of God. And this God says, okay, this father says, okay, here's your cash. He sends, divides the property, gives him the money, probably hugs him and says, don't be gone forever, we're going to miss you. See ya, wherever you're going. He takes off. And debauches, right? Everything is debauchery. They talk about women and the gambling, and you can have all this whole thing, right? He does all this stuff. And he loses all his money. Some of you have been to Vegas. You know what that feels like. He loses all of his money, and he ends up, and this is purposeful in the story. Jesus says, where does he end up? In the pigsty. You know how bad that is for a Jew? He's a Hebrew. Taking care of pigs is like the end of the line. It's the bottom of the bottom. And he's not even able to eat what the pigs are eating. So Jesus, you understand this imagery. Jesus is doing this on purpose. He's like at the bottom. He hits rock bottom. And we've all been there, maybe. Suffering transforms us, doesn't it, a little bit? It makes us ask harder questions. If it's ever happened to you where you think, I'm good, everything's good, and something really bad happens, and you're humbled in a way that you never thought you would. That's brutal. So Jesus says, yeah, go do it. And then he falls into the pigsty, and there he is. And he has this epiphany. I could just work on my dad's farm and eat and not be starving and with these pigs, and this is good. I'll just go home. The beauty of the story is, to some extent, is that he knew he could go home. He knew he could go back. The father never said, I don't want to ever see you again, don't ever come back, take your money, I don't want to ever. That's not what the father said. The father most likely said, you always have it. So he comes back, right? It's a really brilliant thing because Jesus says, and the father sees him from far off. And he does something that's really remarkable because men of that age didn't do that. It talks about him running to him. A Jewish man of that stature wouldn't run anywhere. Running was considered undignified. You didn't do that. You just didn't do it. Picks up and runs to his son. And his son, you can see it, his son is like dropping to his knees, begging for forgiveness. And the father, you can see him, picks him up and hugs it and holds it and tells the servant, get him a cloak. Ooh, that works. And get him a ring on his finger, statue, right? Ring on the finger, statue. Sandals on his feet, which means you're free. And in those days, people who are free had enough to buy sandals. So all this symbolism, right? And he welcomes back in, fatted calf, a big party happens, right? But then the older brother shows up. And Jesus is brilliant. So there's Peter in the Zephyr film. He's standing there like this. He starts talking about the older brother, and you see Peter starts leaning in. The older brother gets mad and won't go in. I'm not going into that party. That's ridiculous. Have any of you ever been like that way where you feel really angry and resentful because you think things are unfair? Has that ever happened to you where someone got something that you didn't get and it makes you mad? So there's the older, right? And Rembrandt has a brilliant painting. If you've ever seen it, pull it up, because it shows the father hugging the son, the prodigal, and then right off into the shadows is the older son, upset. And the father says something brilliant. He comes out to the older son and he says to him, please come here. Yeah, complaining. You didn't, I've been here, I've been working, I'm sweating all the time for you. And the father says, everything I have is yours. Everything I have is yours. Your brother is dead. He's alive. He was lost and he's found. Your brother has been found. And by this time in the Zeffirelli film, Peter has come into Matthew's house, and Matthew's standing, and they're face to face. Jesus has them embraced. It's the beauty. And what's interesting about this story is that it doesn't end with the brother going in. It ends with the father pleading, come in. But it doesn't end. The story, he doesn't go, okay. It leaves it open because our choice is to go in or not. We are the prodigal son. How many times have you been lost and are thankful you've been found? We are the prodigal son who takes what we think is great and goes and does something and it just completely collapses. And we have to come humbly back and beg for mercy. And we are the older brother who is like indignant, righteous. And he has a legitimate beef, really. You know that. But righteous. Okay. But there's the Lord inviting us in to a party where everyone is welcome. Those who are lost. Those who have sinned. Those who haven't done it right. Those who don't live up to expectations. Those who haven't reached a status. Those who are us. He invites the prodigal son continually in. Can we go and join the party where everyone is welcome? That's what this place is about, right? Sound familiar? Can we allow ourselves to be part of a place and a party and a celebration where everyone is welcome? That's the party that's waiting for us.